Pusong natin aabot kahit nasan ka man. Sa gitna ng panubok na panahon, kahatid sila kaakibat ay diskusyon. Sama-sama tayo kahit magkalayo. Sa programang ito, tak ang pagkakato. Teleradyo, Teleradyo Marcelo, Teleradyo, Teleradyo Marcelo. Makinig, manood na sa Teleradyo. Makinig, manood na sa Teleradyo.
Live from Teleradyo Marcelo, ang teleararan ng bawat Delpilarian. Time check is already 11:19 in the morning. Good day to all of you. This is John Marie Malco, your UCSP teacher. You can call me Sir John. Before we begin, let us go back with some of the important concepts about culture, which is the focus of our discussion. We have learned that society is understood or sometimes judged based on their culture. Let us refresh our minds by answering these questions. To participate in this activity, write your answers in the comment section and don't forget to write your section and strand where you belong. Let's begin. The first question: family is the most important unit of this aspect of culture. All right, I will be reading the answers from the comment section. Again, the question is, family is the most important unit of this aspect of culture. Right? So the correct answer for this is social organization. Second, it is usually answers the basic questions about the meaning of life. What do you think is the answer for this question? Again, write your answers in the comment section. Huwag mong kalimutan na ilagay yung section and strand where you belong. All right, the answer for this is religion. Third question: these products of human imagination usually help people to pass on their culture's basic beliefs. Right? The answer for this is customs and tradition. Next question: it is the way of communicating and understanding each other. It is the way of communicating and understanding each other. The answer for this is language. All right. For the last question, it maintains order within a society and protects it from outside threat. What do you think is the answer for this? All right. The answer is forms of government. Great job, Delpilarians! Today, we will talk about cultural relativism in attaining cultural understanding. As we begin this lesson, allow me to present to you the following facts about the cultures of different countries. Did you know that in Tanzania, Muslim and Hindu girls can marry at 12 as long as marriage is not consummated until the girl reaches at the age of 15? Did you also know, class, that in America, eye contact suggests that you are paying attention in what a person has to say. Yet, in other cultures, eye contact can be considered rude and a challenge of authority. Did you also know, class, that in Spain, the way of saying hello is kissing your cheeks twice? And of course, did you also know that in Egypt, it is an insult to the host when you ask a salt while dining? Egyptians take it to mean that when you are repulsed by the taste of the meal served to you. Kaya bawal manghingi ng asin kapag when you are dining, most especially if you are in Egypt. And lastly, let us look at the food culture in the Philippines. Did you know that Philippines, there are different cultures, most particularly in our food culture, particularly that we Filipinos love to eat rice. And it is a food staple in every Filipino's meal every day, unless that a person is on a strict diet. So the world is composed of many societies with different cultures. For a human being, it is just natural to view other cultures and compare them with his or her own. However, let us not forget that all cultures in the world also project similarities. Sociologists enumerate an extensive list of these similarities, such as speech, language, art, cooking, eating, courting, and a host of others. According to Banks et al., there are four primary causes of cultural similarities. Namely, first, biological similarities. This means that all people in the world have the same biological needs, namely food, clothing, shelter, and healthcare.
Nagnanabik ka na bang masundan ang mga aralin at nagkabinding katanungan? Halika't sama-sama nating balikan, lasang natin aabot kahit nasan ka man. Sa gitna ng palubok na panahon, kahatid sila kaakibat ay diskusyon. Sama-sama tayo kahit magkalayo. aabot kahit nasan ka man. Sa gitna ng panubok na panahon, kahatid sila kaakibat ay diskusyon. Sama-sama tayo kahit magkalayo. Sa programang ito, tag ang pagkakato. Teleradyo, Teleradyo Marcelo, Teleradyo, Teleradyo Marcelo. Makinig, manood na sa teleradyo. Makinig, manood na sa teleradyo.
All right. I'm really sorry for the inconvenience due to the connectivity of our connection. So, going back to our lesson class, the world is composed of many societies with different cultures. For a human being, it is just natural to view other cultures and compare them with his or her own. However, let us not forget that all cultures in the world also projects similarities. Sociologists enumerate an extensive list of these similarities, such as speech, language, art, cooking, eating, courting, and a host of others. According to Banks et al., there are four primary causes of cultural similarities. First, biological similarities. This means that all people in the world have the same biological needs, namely food, clothing, shelter, and healthcare. Second similarities that we have is the necessary prerequisites for social being. Society must fulfill some requirements in order to function, such as replacing members, teaching new members to participate, and the need to have participated in production and distribution. We are also psychologically similar. All human beings are alike in having similar ranges of emotion: the need for love, the need for security, and of course, language. And lastly, we share one geography. The geographical environment is characterized by certain limitations, such as we are limited to food, we have limited source of energy, and other delimiting factors of the people's environment. So those are our similarities. However, according to Abulencia and Paranal, every society in the world is unique from one another. Everyone has or her own cultural practices, values, and interests. Each culture has its distinct features and characteristics. So let us see what is cultural relativism. Cultural relativism is the view that all cultures, beliefs, customs, and ethics are relative to the individual within his own social context. This is socially called cultural diversity. So these differences in culture can be attributed to the following factors. First, that though all men all over the world have the same biological needs, such as food, shelter, clothing, they differ in ways in meeting them. Each culture adapts to its environment. Second, there are also differences in geographical characteristics like climate, topography, or social condition. And lastly, there is an absent or presence of natural resources. Now let's jump to another part of our lesson, which of course, our culture. Culture class is a social construct that is sometimes used interchangeably with society. Though these concepts are interrelated and interdependent, since the absence of one is also the absence of the other, the two are not the same. Take note, the two are not the same. Culture is a system of shared behavior, while society is a group of people who share a common culture. For instance, Filipinos are known for being hospitable, a characteristic collective attributed to the Filipino people. So let's talk about the variations of cultural traits. According to Aguilar, there are specific forms of cultural traits that may vary significantly from society to society. So what are these? First, subculture. Subculture may be defined as a modified culture within a larger culture practiced by a society. Let's take the rock culture in music as an example. In general, rock music is a culture observed in many societies all over the world. Another example is the Cebuano in Manila, or the military officers may be considered as a subculture. Next is culture or counterculture. Counterculture is a culture with values and mores that run counter to those established in society. For example, the rebel groups are a good, or they are an example of a counterculture. We have our culture as a society, then there are rebel groups who are countering or against the culture that we have. Next is what we call cultural integration. So remember class, in our previous lesson, we have discussed the characteristics of culture. Namely, culture is learned, culture is transmitted, culture is adaptive, culture is gratifying, and culture is symbolic. However, studies also claim that culture is also integrated. We call that cultural integration. Now, cultural integration occurs when cultural traits are logically consistent with one another or simply neutral to another. There are also advantages and disadvantages of cultural integration. So let us define what are their advantages and disadvantages. First, the advantages of cultural integration, that people of all cultures become used to one another and they learn more about each other as individuals. Kapag tayo ay nakikipagsalamuha sa ibang kultura, mas naiintindihan natin ang pagkatao o yung buhay nila. People also get to take pride in themselves while also living with people who may be different. Like, for an example, our OFW, whenever there are significant event in the Philippines, we take pride that we are a Filipino. We are proud that we are a Filipino. However, there are also disadvantages of cultural integration. Namely, people have tended to stick with other than their own culture when living in a situation of interactive cultural differences. And culture may become blended and most or in lost in time. It is important to have things in common with people, but we have to own up to history. Minsan nakakalimutan natin o kinakahiya natin yung ating kultura. So that is one of the disadvantages of cultural integration. Now let's talk about acculturation. Acculturation, on the other hand, happens when there is contact between two or more cultures. In acculturation, there are changes in artifacts, customs, and beliefs that results from the contact of two or more cultures. The term is also used to refer to the result of such changes. There are actually two major types of acculturation, namely incorporation and direct change. So these may be distinguished on the basis of conditions under which cultural contact takes place. And more often than not, cultures varies from one society to another. However, it is essential to note that all cultures share patterns or traits that are unique and common to all societies across the globe. This is commonly referred to as universal or cultural universal. For instance, the use of language as a medium of communication. So this is absolute among societies, whether or not it is traditional or modern language. Ethnocentrism, on the other hand, pertains to the belief that one's native culture is superior to the most natural among other cultures. An ethnocentric person sees and weighs another culture based upon the values and standards of his or her own. So the word ethnocentrism was coined by the American social scientist William Sommer in 1906 to provide a technical term for viewing one's ethnicity, or the word ethno, in the center of all cultures. The word centrism. So we have the word ethnocentrism. It is a perception that arises from the fact that cultures differ and each culture defines reality differently, judging another culture solely by the values and standard of one's own culture. Let's take a look at our own culture. Minsan, tayong mga Pilipino, nagiging ethnocentric tayo towards non-Filipino cultures. For instance, most Western cultures It is normal for a child to call his parents by their first name, such as "Hello Andrew," "Hello William," "Yes David." However, dito sa Pilipinas, it is rude. It is a form of disrespect to call our parents or to those who are older than us by their first name. Filipinos are accustomed to honoring and respecting their parents by calling them nanay, tatay, mama, papa. Minsan nga kahit hindi natin kamag-anak or kakilala, tinatawag nating nanay, tatay, or kuya and ate. So this display of respect of the two cultures is different. So this is regard that many Filipino tend to be ethnocentric towards Western culture. However, let me give you a warning. It is good and highly appreciating that we will appreciate one's culture. Maganda ito. However, when we criticize or belittle another culture, may cause conflict. Next, that in reality class, that everyone has a bit of ethnocentrism. Totoo yan, it is a reality. However, a highly ethnocentric person, kapag ito ay na-expose sa isang bagong kultura, makaka-experience siya ng tinatawag nating culture shock. He or she may find it difficult to adapt to the cultures and may feel severe confusion and disturbance. So culture shock happens when a person does not expect or accept cultural differences. Many expat and foreign workers, for example, experience culture shock on the first weeks or months in their new environment. Right? There are also cases when a person imposes his or her own culture upon another person with intentions to help him dispatch from what the former thinks is an essentially inferior culture. Ang tawag natin dito ay cultural imperialism. So ano yung cultural imperialism? This is to deliberate imposition of one's cultural belief to another culture. And the perfect example for this is the motive of the Spaniards when they colonized Philippines. Remember that Spaniards has their own culture which is different from the culture of the early Filipinos. So when they arrive in the Philippines, they impose their culture and their religion as well. Remember that the early Filipinos, we are animists in nature. We believe in the spirits of nature or the other spirits. However, when the Spaniards arrived during the colonization, they imposed not just only their culture as well their religion, which of course they believe that that religion, which is Christianity, is superior from the faith and belief of the early Filipinos, which is animism. So that is cultural imperialism, the idea that our own culture is superior than other culture. On the other hand, we have xenocentrism. Xenocentrism has an opposite relative or the belief that one culture is inferior to another. Yung paniniwala na yung kultura natin ay inferior compared to other culture. A xenocentric person usually has a high regard for other cultures but disdains his own or is embarrassed by it. Kumbaga, kinahihiya natin yung kultura natin. And sadly, xenocentrism is sometimes or mostly evident in many Filipinos, especially those who are influenced by other cultures. So many people prefer imported products rather than locally made ones, thinking that the quality is better if the product is made abroad. Just like the image that I am presenting right now, ayaw natin sa kulturang Pilipino, pero gusto natin yung ibang kultura. Or we don't like or we do not support locally made products at gusto natin yung imported. So that is what we call xenocentrism. Assimilation, on the other hand, is a foreign culture which does not necessarily make you disloyal or less nationalistic to your home country. As a universal being or as a global citizen, as well as we call it globally, assimilation class is we are open to other cultures. We are interacting with other cultures, not just our fellow citizens, but with other cultures as well. Amalgamation, on the other hand, is we preserve one's own cultural heritage amidst globalization. Just like what we are having right now, we are facing globalization. So we Filipinos lump together, paving the way of redefining Filipino cultural identity. So this is to preserve one's cultural heritage amidst globalization, which is now a challenge posed to each and every one of us. It is a challenge that kinakailangan i-preserve natin yung ating kultura. Alright? So at this point, let us have an activity. So I will be presenting a question based or a questions based on the topic that we have discussed earlier. So to participate in this activity, write your answer together with your grade and section in our comment section. So after which, take a screenshot of your answers and submit them to your UCSP teachers. Additional points will be given to students who got the correct answer. All right? So the question goes, is there such as superior and inferior culture? Then, explain your answer. Meron nga bang superior na kultura? Meron nga bang inferior na kultura? Much better if we take a look at our culture as Filipinos or our Filipino culture. Superior ba yung kultura natin or inferior yung kultura natin? Alright? So before we end, let us first recapitulate what we have discussed today. First, we have viewed that other cultures, particularly their advantages and disadvantages. Second, we have discussed cultural relativism and cultural diversity. And lastly, we have viewed how cultures varied or varies with each other. So as we end this lesson class, let me leave you this message. Let us review other cultures as neither inferior nor superior. View another culture by its own context, then assessing it based on the standards of our own culture. So that's it in our discussion this morning on cultural relativism in attaining cultural understanding. As I end our session, I would like to thank, first of all, our school principal, Dr. Maria Victoria Vivo, our master teacher, my fellow UCSP teachers, and to all teachers who are behind Teleradyo for your all-out support. Once again, I am Mr. John Marie Malco, your UCSP teacher, na nagsasabing halina at ating alamin at tuklasin ang kulipo, kultura, lipunan, at politika.
Radyo is always at your service. Kaya naman, ang feedback mo, suggestions nyo ay mahalaga sa amin to improve our programs on air and online. Para alam ni teacher yung strengths as well as the things in your mind na mas makatutulong sa mas effective na pagkatuto sa Teleradyo. Please take time to send your feedbacks via Teleradyo Move, which you can access by scanning the QR code on the right or typing the URL provided here, bit.ly/3ORVAY9. One more, this time you follow. bit.ly/3 /3ORVAY9. Kaya send your hashtag TBH o hashtag RT dito sa Teleradyo Mu, kung saan ang feedback mo, suggestions nyo ay mahalaga sa Teleradyo.
Makinig, manood na sa teleradyo. Makinig, manood na sa teleradyo. Teleradyo, Teleradyo Marcelo. Sa gitna ng mapanubok na panahon, magkahatid sigla at kakibat ay diskusyon. Sama-sama tayo, kahit magkalayo. Sa programang ito, tiyak ang pagkatuto. Teleradyo, Teleradyo Marcelo. Teleradyo, Teleradyo Marcelo. Teleradyo, Teleradyo Marcelo.